What is going on, guys? It's your boy, Kawaii Oppie. While I was thinking of what kind of video I wanted to make, I started rewatching my favorite anime, Hunter x Hunter. I was thinking about how strong and weak some of the characters were, and I decided to look up a tier list online, and it's pretty easy to say that they all suck ass. So, I decided to make my own. I'm going to be listing a good amount of the characters from weakest to strongest, with some more general groups of characters as comparison points. As a disclaimer, I'm not going to be going over characters with little to no feats, even if they're implied to be strong, such as the Zodiacs and a lot of the characters in the new Dark Continent arc. Also, this relies somewhat on personal bias, so feel free to write an inferior list in the comments. First up, we have the shit tier characters, who I'm giving a rating of F on my tier list. So, as our baseline and number 50 on my list, I'm going to have the normies that took the Hunter exam. This basically applies to anyone who is at least good enough to get onto the Zevil Island Manhunt section, because they all possess some superhuman levels and would whoop any normal person's ass, but I don't think they're really all that strong. This list includes like the three brothers, and like the blow dart dude, and like the bee chick. At number 49, I have the Chimera Ant Soldiers. These are the no-name soldiers, just run around and kill people. It's possible that some of the people in the Hunter exam could kill them, but not a lot of them. Okay, at number 48, I have Exceptional Hunters who took the Hunter exam who don't know Nen. So this would be characters like Hanzo when he was taking the exam. I know he learns Nen later. And also characters like Killua, Illumi, Hisoka before we know about the existence of Nen. So just like top tier physical fighters. 47 is Zushi. Nen gives a big advantage, so Zushi could pretty much beat anyone who doesn't know Nen. He probably would have beaten Killua, honestly, if Wing had let him use his full power, because Killua almost shit his pants when he started to use his Nen. 46 is Melody. Melody is a pro hunter, and she obviously has some Nen capabilities, so I assume she's at least stronger than Zushi, but with no real feats, I can't put her any higher than this. 45 is Leorio. Leorio has a pretty decent Hatsu of teleporting his punches, but he doesn't really train or have any fighting spirit like a lot of the other characters do, so I think he's probably one of the weakest hunters we see in the series, other than like absolute fodder tier hunters. And at number 44, we have Average Pro Hunters. This is a lot of the people who are on Greed Island, such as Sesugera's group. This is kind of self-explanatory. These guys kind of suck, as seen when Illumi and Hisoka slaughtered tons of these guys super easily during the election arc. So, I made this really shitty tier list on like fucking Excel and Microsoft Paint just so you guys can kind of stay updated and see what my tier list looks like. Next, in D tier, we have number 43, Chimera Ant Officers. These are guys like Ramot, and the Bat and the Owl, and like the gay tarantula dude. Some of them have the ability to use Nen, and they have pretty high reflexes and speed compared to average hunters. Number 42 is just a slight upgrade. This is the Chimera Ant Squad Leaders. This is like the shitty ones. I'll go more in depth of some of the important ones. But this is like the alligator one and the bull one, like the ones we never really see do anything. This is kind of an inference, but I assume they're stronger than guys like Ramot. So here's the updated tier list for D tier. There's only two groups of characters in this because I just kind of want it as a reference point, not an actual tier list for specific characters. Okay, next we have C tier, and at the beginning of C tier, we have number 41, Korotopy. Korotopy was able to conjure 15 buildings, which is a crazy feat, considering that they weren't illusions, they were physical buildings. So this guy might actually be strong as hell, and I may be super downplaying him. At number 40, we have Pakudona. She's pretty weak like Korotopy, but she's not 3 feet tall, so I arbitrarily decided to put her above him. Number 39 is Genthru. I originally had Genthru a lot lower on my list, but I rewatched the Greed Island arc, and he's actually not that bad. He was able to completely finesse a lot of normie hunters who are established to suck. We already know this. But he barely lost to Gon, who had to resort to trickery, and I honestly think his explosions are strong enough that he could take down a Chimera Ant. Number 38 is one I went back and forth a lot on too, and this is the Shadow Beasts. I know, hear me out, they got fucking demolished by one spider, but you have to remember, spiders are A-class bounties. They're fucking insane. And they didn't even honestly do that bad. I mean, Rabid Dog was said that if he had been using poison instead of paralyzer, he straight up would have killed Uvo. And we see Worm tank a big bang attack to the face and live for a little while longer. That's impressive. Next up is Nav. I have little doubt that Nav is an excellent hunter, and I believe he's probably one of the stronger hunters outside of the Zodiacs, and that's why he was decided to accompany Netero. But against more dedicated fighters, he just doesn't really stack up. Number 36 is Gon. Since he is the main character, he's seen throughout the entire story and has varying strength levels, so I'm going to be using the most powerful version of Gon that isn't adult Gon. So basically, in the Chimera Ant arc, I think Gon is actually pretty weak. Sure, his Jajunkin is impressive, but you don't see him hit anybody with it very often, and even when he does hit it, it usually doesn't finish the fight. He has decent showings against Knuckle, but he did lose that, and he had to go beast mode to beat Pito. And other than that, he's just beat like some shit tier Chimera Ants and Genthru, so not really that impressive. And at the top of this tier, we have number 35, Kaluto. Kaluto is said to be the weakest member of the trope, and she was amazed by the fight between Zazan and Phaeton, so I think she has a lot of room to grow before she becomes a full-fledged troop member. Here's a quick look at the tier list. Okay, now we're in B tier, and this is where we're going to be getting into a lot of the troop members, because I think they get placed around here. So, at number 34, we have Machi. I believe she's one of the weakest members of the troop, she just doesn't have a whole lot of feats. She was kicked away by Killua, and just overall doesn't seem to have a very combat-focused ability. Number 33 is Franklin. Franklin's my least favorite member of the troop, and that's part of the reason why he's near the bottom, but he just doesn't seem that impressive. His bullet storm, that he shoots the bullets out of his fingers, seems like more of a mass murder tool. It doesn't really seem like it'd be super effective in a fight, because usually barrage-style attacks like that in shonen anime don't really do anything. 32 is Shizuku. Her strength is pretty average for the troop, and she has a decent combat ability, and she was able to knock out Nobunaga, although he was turned around and distracted. She also beat that creepy rape spider, so that's gotta be worth something. 31 is Bonolinov. I honestly don't remember how to say his name. His Jupiter attack seemed kinda good, and he has like the whistling thing that distracts people, but I just don't think it seems like they'd be that effective. I think most people would be able to get around it and beat him, especially because Gon was able to get past the screeching of the bat, and it seems like a very similar ability. Number 30 is Shoot. I think Shoot is overall fairly weak, and he's pretty afraid of fighting, and his power is kinda lame and was kind of ineffective, but you have to remember, it was ineffective against a royal guard, who were absolute madmen. So I put him this high strictly because he survived as long as he did against a royal guard. And right above him, no surprise, is Knuckle. I think Knuckle edges out Shoot just a bit. His bankruptcy ability would be devastating to anyone, especially if he's stuck with his hit and run strategy. His strength is nothing to scoff at, and I think a lot of the members would have an extremely tough time dealing with him. Number 29 is Kurapika. And for this Kurapika placement, don't worry, I'm going to have another. I'm going to be assuming whoever he's fighting is not a spider. Kurapika's powers are pretty dumb, with his Judgment Chain being some major hacks, as well as his ability to steal other people's Nen powers. but without chain jail, I don't think he could beat very many members of the troop. At number 27, I have Nobunaga. He doesn't have a Canon Hatsu right now, and so that puts him a bit lower than I think he really is. He has a 2-meter N, which is pretty sad, but I'm sure that's just because that's his striking range. I'm sure if he used Shu, if you remember what that is, that's the enshroud that Gon and Killua use on their shovels, that his sword would be able to cut through almost anything, but I still don't see him being that powerful. However, he must be pretty strong, because in the flashback they talk about how he fought side by side with Uvo, but that's not concrete enough for me to put him any higher than he currently is. Number 26 is Zazan, and maybe Lael. Zazan seems to be the strongest non-royal ant, and Lael is no slouch either. I think that Zazan would be able to beat some of the weaker troop members, but I doubt she would survive anything like a Big Bang attack. 25 is the resident Super Saiyan, Shalnark. His Nen puppets are nothing really special, but his Super Saiyan mode seems pretty strong. It's unclear how strong, because he did get killed by Hisoka, and I assume that he would use that ability if possible, so it can't be too great. 24 is Morel. Morel is a seasoned hunter who was able to tangle with royal guards, although with limited success. His deep purple ability is nothing special, especially when compared to someone like Koratopi, but his smoky jail seems almost impenetrable even to a royal guard. Number 23 is Finks. Finks has a possible Hack's Punch, and he's the physically second strongest member of the troop. He seemed to be pretty confident that he could brush past Nobunaga and Machi to go fight Kurapika, but that might just be story writing. Honestly, he's not overall too impressive. I mean, I think Uvo could have accomplished the exact same thing as he did with his punches. And here's another look at the tier list with B tier all filled out. Next, we have A tier, which consists of extremely powerful fighters. First off is number 22, Bisky. Bisky is said to be on par with people like Hisoka in the guidebooks, but her inability to dodge Razor's attack and her seeming disinterest in fighting leads me to put her here. And yes, I know she wasn't in her buff form when she was against Razor. Number 21 is Uvo. Uvo got gooned by a totally BS Hack's ability that he had no way to counter. But before that, he made a total mockery of the Shadow Beasts, tanked a rocket launcher blast, and released a Big Bang impact that seemed to have a similar impact to Otot Gon's Janken. I think he slightly edges out Bisky. Number 20 is Razor. Razor has the ability to summon fully sentient Nen puppets, while also displaying near mastery level enhancement and emitter techniques. I think he's about on par with Uvo, and I think it would be one of the fairest fights in the entire series. I'd love to see a fight between the two. Number 19 is Phaeton. Phaeton fought Zazan to a pretty decent stalemate, but he eventually had to release his Pain Packer ability, which incinerated her. This ability has a lot of fans thinking he could kill Meruem, but I'm still pretty skeptical of that. Finally, at the top of A, we have everyone's favorite character, Killua. I think Godspeed Killua is OP as hell, and it gives him a major advantage over a lot of fighters. It's unclear how fast he is compared to other people, but it's fast enough to shit on both Yuffie and Poof, so I think it's decent enough to beat most of the troop. Honestly, I don't know exactly where to put him. I don't know if he's down near Gon, or if he's up near Hisoka and Crollo, so I decided to just put him here, because he did still seem kinda scared of Illumi. Here's the tier list with A tier all filled out. Next is S tier, where I'm going to be putting extremely strong characters. Number 17 is Illumi. Honestly, Illumi doesn't impress me very much, but he's implied to be around Hisoka level, so I'm going to put him here. His Needleman wouldn't really do anything in a real fight other than provide a distraction, but he does have a large amount of assassination techniques and mastery of Nen. Right above Illumi is his father, Silva. He's a professional assassin and was able to fight with the likes of Crollo, although with the help of Zeno, and he also one-shot Chitu, although it was a surprise attack. To me, he seems to have the strength, speed, and skill equivalent to someone like Razor or Uvo, but he seems to be much more intelligent and have a host of assassination techniques. Him getting slashed by the Ben's knife, though, because he didn't react in time, makes him look pretty bad. Number 15 is Hisoka. Hisoka is a powerful fighter who fought Chrollo one-on-one and kind of lived to tell the tale. He lost the fight in the end, but was able to kill Oppie and Shalnark fairly easily, and I think without a doubt he could 1v1 any troop member besides Chrollo. Number 14 is Kite. I rate Kite above some of the others in this tier because he was able to fight one-on-one with a royal guard, albeit for a short time. Pito clearly took some damage in this fight, and Kite was fighting with just one arm. He was also recognized by Jing, and I think that's worth something. Number 13 is Chrollo Lucifer. Chrono was able to fight 2 versus 1 against Zeno and Silva, 2 of the best assassins on the planet, and survived relatively unscathed. Zeno even said that Chrollo had a chance of winning a one-on-one fight against him if he was really trying, and I don't think Zeno was exaggerating at all. However, I'm putting Zeno at number 12 above Chrollo. Zeno was strong enough that Netero brought him to help move Meruem. Remember, their plan was originally a forceful extraction of Meruem, separating him from his royal guard, and Netero was confident that Zeno could do this. He seems to be similar in strength to Chrollo, but I don't think Chrollo could pull off the same feat. At the top of S tier is something I like to dub the Kurapika threshold. What this is theoretically, if the person Kurapika was fighting was a spider, they would be able to beat him. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Kurapika was able to capture Chrollo, although the lights did get shut off, so I think it's safe to assume that he could capture anyone that was weaker than Chrollo, if they were a spider. Here's S tier all filled out. The next tier is the Royal Guard tier, and I think it's also pretty self-explanatory. The reason I don't think Kurapika could take on the Royal Guard, even if they were theoretically spiders, is I think that the Royal Guard could all blitz down Kurapika before he could react. Therefore, I'm going to place all the Royal Guards above Kurapika. At the bottom of this tier, and number 10, is Poof. I do believe that Poof is the weakest fighter of all the guards, because his role was not specifically combat, it was more to take control of all of the people and make an army. However, Poof is no slouch, and I feel like if he was calm and not so stressed out about the king, he would be somewhat comparable to the other 2 royal guards. Number 9 is going to piss a lot of people off, but it's Pito. Pito demolished Kite, and has the widest known end range in the series, excluding possibly Meruem, but it's hard to tell, and took off enraged Adult Gon's arm while dead. That's a feat, so make no mistake that she would pretty much shit on everyone. But at number 8 is Oppie. I think after transforming, Oppie is the strongest of the 3 guards. He sustained pretty much 0 damage despite fighting for the longest amount of time, and seemed pretty much unkillable. I honestly don't even know if Netero could kill him, he just seems extremely durable. Next is Adult Gon. And I already hear you saying, hey, isn't Adult Gon specifically stated to be just as strong as Meruem? Well, yes, but there's a major difference. He's not as smart, and he's not as durable. I think, honestly, that if Adult Gon tried to take on someone like Netero, he'd get his ass completely handed to him. I highly doubt he'd be able to take the 10,000 slaps that Meruem was able to. Speaking of Netero, he's number 6. Netero's an insane old man whose dying wish is to eradicate the Chimera ants for looking down on humans. He does this by summoning the Buddha to slap the shit out of everything. He fought Meruem for a decently long time, although it was actually like 2 minutes, I think, and was eventually able to finish him off by activating the nuclear weapon in his chest. He would shit on everyone who isn't Royal Guard level, and could probably take out all of the Royal Guards. Just to clear that up so no one pisses themselves, I don't think he could take on all of the Royal Guards at once, but I think he might be able to take on 2 at once, but it would be interesting to watch. Here's S tier all filled out. Our next tier is also extremely self-explanatory. It's the Meruem tier, and it's all just for our buddy Meruem. Meruem completely tops the charts on every single attribute as seen in some of the official guidebooks for Hunter x Hunter. Meruem is scary as hell. He's the greatest strategist and fighter in the entire show, and he tanked Netero's Zero Handle with minimal damage, but he was killed off by a nuclear weapon, so he's not invincible. Speaking of probably invincible, at number 4 we have Post-Rose Meruem. Post-Rose Meruem is just Meruem on fucking steroids. He's so strong and fast that he can practically teleport and one-hit anybody, and so far there's no one introduced that could beat him in a fair fight. But someone might be able to beat him in an unfair fight. Here's the obvious Meruem tier. Finally, I have my triple S super duper OP tier that I like to call the bullshit tier. This is basically made up of a bunch of theoretical situations where a character could beat Post-Rose Meruem. These aren't in any particular order, although they kind of are, and I think these are kind of fun to think about. So the first one, and the one I think that's least likely to beat Post-Rose Meruem, is number 3, Phaeton. It's possible that someone could bring him to near death, and then he could release a Pain Packer equivalent or greater than the nuke used by Netero, but I don't think he has the speed, and I think that if he was dying, he wouldn't actually be able to use it, so I'm going to put him at the bottom. Number 2 is something that not a lot of you people would actually have thought about before, but my friend and I talk about it all the time, and that's Basho. If you don't remember who that is, that's the guy from the York New arc that was one of the bodyguards that wrote the haiku that burned the chair. It's theoretically possible that he could write a haiku that would make Meruem die for some arbitrary reason that he doesn't have to tell him about, and that would instantly kill him, so there's no way Meruem could really fight against that. The last one is obvious and everyone knows it. It's Alaka. She can grant any wish, probably, so she could just wish for Meruem to die and he'd probably just die. It might cost thousands or even millions of lives though, because it would be a tall order. And finally, here is the completed tier list. Well guys, that's basically it for my Hunter x Hunter tier list. I hope you liked it. I did a lot of moving around, and even though I've spent about 5 days on this trying to put people in a decent order that I agree with, there's still some things I'm kind of iffy about. So if you have any good evidence or just your opinion, you can put it in the comments and I'll consider it, but I'm probably not going to remake the video. But if it's good, I'll pin it and everyone can see that you're smarter than me. It's been your boy Kawaii, and I'll see you guys next time.